Hey, beautiful people. I hope you're having a great day. We are on day 7. What is day 7 going to teach us? Well, in our 12 Days of Christmas song, it's 7 swans a swimming. And I think the swans are all basically flown away for the winter now because it's kind of cold. So we're not talking about swans a swimming today. Our number 7 in the Christian form of this of these 12 days is the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And so what does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you. So the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit is: 1 is wisdom, 2 is understanding, 3 is counsel or right judgment. Number 4 is fortitude. That's another big word, which means courage. And number 5 is knowledge. Number 6 is piety, another big word. And number 7 is the fear of the Lord. So let me just tell you a little bit about them. We're not going to go into deep detail today because this can get kind of deep. So number 1 is wisdom, and it helps us to see the world differently and from God's point of view. Because sometimes we listen to our friends, sometimes we listen to what the TV is telling us, and that kind of stuff. And sometimes we can get into trouble with that, right? So we need to listen with wisdom of God, right? So when we think about the Bible and we think about the things that we need to know, and because wisdom is knowing things, is for us to make sure that we look at it from God's point of view. So there was this big campaign a few years back. It was called "What Would Jesus Do?" So when you think about that, if you think about wisdom and what the world is telling us to do, we have to think about what would God want us to do? What would Jesus want us to do? So the wisdom that God gives us is one of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit will tell you if you'll feel bad if you're doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. You'll feel it in your heart. Number 2 is understanding, and that enables us to know more clearly the mysteries of God. So the mysteries of our faith, right? So God will help us to understand some of those things. And so it's sometimes, like I say, we don't, faith is believing in what we can't see. So if we can't see it, we don't really understand it. So God, by the Holy Spirit, again, it's the gift of the Holy Spirit, right? So he's going to help us understand all the things that we learn from the Bible. Number 3 is counsel or right judgment. So sometimes we have to think what's right and what's wrong, right? And so our counsel is the Holy Spirit telling us that what we should be doing and what we're not supposed to be doing. So it helps us to discern, helps us to decide what is right and what is wrong, right? And so remember, we've talked about that sometimes. It's almost like having the little angel on one shoulder and the little devil on the other shoulder telling us what is right. So we need to be listening to this angel and the Holy Spirit telling us, no, I shouldn't do that. That's not something I should do, right? Even though the world is telling us, or somebody else may tell us, oh, let's go do that, but we know it's wrong. So the counsel is right judgment. So we know in our minds that that's not right. The next one is fortitude. That's a big word for courage. And we know what courage is, right? So having courage to stand up and say, I can do it, right? And so it strengthens us, strengthens our will so that we can actually accomplish what is true. So when the Bible is telling us to go and share our faith, or the Bible is telling us to believe in something that we don't really understand, it gives us the courage to do that. It helps us to stand up and to do things, to love people when they're really not lovable, right? You gotta have courage to go help people when they're sick. You have to have courage to love someone who's being mean, right? And so fortitude and courage is number 4. And number 5 is knowledge. Knowledge enables us to discover God's will in all things. So when we're trying to decide what we're going to do with our life, and we're going to decide what is right and what's wrong, the knowledge that God gives us helps us to make that decision. So the knowledge, the things that we've learned from the Bible, the things that we've talked about in Christian education gives us knowledge. So we know the Bible, right? We know the 10 Commandments. We know some of the things that we're supposed to do and some of the things we're not supposed to do. And piety. Piety helps us to love God. He's our merciful Father. It helps us to love him and to obey the teachings because we love him. And so that's what piety means. It's just loving people and to love God and to trust him, right? That's very, very important that we have that. And again, that's another gift of the Spirit. And then number 7, the last one, because this is the 7th day, is the fear of the Lord. And it's not being afraid of God. It's not like, oh, I'm scared of him. It's like, oh, wonder and awe, like, wow. And because we see God in our hearts and in our minds, it helps us to understand how we can depend on God for everything. And that's amazing. So it's like being amazed. So that fear is not so much being afraid, but it's a word they use in the Bible, but it's almost like a wonder and awe. Wow, that's awesome, right? And in other words, that God is God and we're not God. And so we need to know that he is there for us and that the wonder of it all is very important. So that's the seven gifts of the Holy Spirit. So that's day 7. So we'll be back tomorrow with day 8. So you're going to enjoy some songs and some videos this afternoon or whatever, or morning, whatever you're doing this. And I hope you have a fantastic day. So God bless you. Have a good one.